Yes, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to GEA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping well. Today we're going to be looking at what would have happened in the National Football League had it have not been cancelled. So if all the games had have gone together as normal, who would have came out on top, who would have been promoted, who would have been relegated in the various different divisions. Now this was actually put to me by one of my subscribers on the channel, Richard, a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, when I seen his comment I literally thought straight away that is definitely a video I'm going to make. You know, what would have happened in the National Football League had it have not been cancelled because of coronavirus, obviously. So that is what we're going to be looking at today. Now obviously I'm going to split this video into two. So in today's video we're going to be looking at Division 4 and Division 3, and then in a couple of days we will look at Divisions 1 and 2. So we'll be looking at the promotion, the relegation. We'll be talking a bit about what has happened in the league so far, a bit about who were the standout players, the big performing players, who were the surprise packages in terms of counties doing better than people expected, and of course obviously we will be doing our prediction based off the two remaining matches in what would have happened in the National League. So who would have been promoted and who would have been relegated, etc. Now, if you could do me a massive favour and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this out to your friends and family. We're very close to 400 subscribers, so if we can get to that in the next week or so, I would be very happy with that. And yeah lads, of course I do appreciate all the comments and stuff recently, and yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Alright, so we'll look at Division 4. Now Division 4, to be perfectly honest, has kind of been very up and down this year in many ways. I mean, it's been very inconsistent. A lot of the sides that I think a lot of people expected to be at the top of Division 4, it hasn't really worked out that way. You know, in my opinion, I had Antrim and Carlow as the two sides to get promoted. If you look back at my prediction I would have done before the National League started, I said Antrim and Carlow, in my opinion, would have been promoted from Division 4. Now Antrim will have to go on and see what their remaining two matches are. They could easily have still ended up finishing on top and won the Division 4 championship, but Carlow in particular have been very disappointing. Turlough O'Brien, of course, leaving his position as manager of Carlow in the past week or so as well, I think very much reflects that. You know, relegated from Division 3 last year, and they really haven't kicked on in Division 4 this year. They've only won one of their 5 matches, and you can see them there if we have a look at the table right now. In fact, they're sitting there with 4 points in 6th position, so they certainly haven't been anywhere near good enough. And of course Waterford and London, I mean, there is no relegation in Division 4, so we won't speak too much about them. I suppose you do have to give some praise to Waterford. They got a win over Sligo, and I believe they drew another game in there as well. So 1 win and a draw, 3 points. Not a bad season. Could have, you know, avoided finishing 7th, but potentially ended up finishing above Carlow. Who would have known? So fair play to Waterford there for getting a couple of points on the board. And as we said, Carlow, I mean, it's not mathematically impossible for them to claim promotion there, but they're 3 points off Antrim, 4 points off Limerick. There's you know, 3 other teams above them there, so I don't think Carlow are in the consideration for promotion. Alright, so then if we look at, of course, the top 5, I mean, it was really up for grabs in many ways. I mean, you had the surprise package, Limerick, of course, who were sitting there with 8 points. You had Antrim in second with 7. Wexford, Wicklow and Sligo all made up 6 points, all sharing almost identical records. 3 wins and 2 losses for each of them. And of course Limerick were very much the surprise package in the National Football League this season, especially in Division 4. I mean, sitting there on 8 points, and I think the main reason for that is because a lot of teams, as I said before, in Division 4 were just very inconsistent. A lot of teams losing games that they shouldn't have been losing, and Limerick were the side that were capitalising massively on that and beating the teams that they should be beating, and that is why they sit top of the league, because they actually won their opening 4 matches in the National Football League, beating the likes of Carlow, Waterford, Wicklow and London to set themselves in a very strong position going into their final 3 games. Of course, they played Antrim as well and actually lost by 18 points, which, when you think about it, is a significant margin to lose a game against when, you know, you're playing against a team who's actually below you in the league. Now, in fairness to Limerick, in my opinion, I do think they massively overachieved in many ways to be sat on top of Division 4. If you do look through some of their wins, for example, they only had a 1 point win over London and actually a very poor display. They won 8 points to 7. Against Carlow, they weren't particularly great either, but they did manage to just about scrape the win. Perhaps their most impressive win was their 8-point victory over Wicklow. They played very well in that game, very dominant, and of course Wicklow, as we said before, were in the top 5 as well, so fair play to Limerick for getting that victory. So Ian Corba has been their standout player in the National Football League this year. He has been their top scorer. Danny Neville's been very impressive as well. But I suppose one thing to really factor in about Limerick is they're not really a team of individuals. They don't really have individual players who drag them through matches. They just work really well as a team, and they've just happened to get over the line in a lot of these matches when other counties wouldn't. And they have a great team spirit, and I think that is one of the main reasons why they sit top of Division 4. They never give up, they never give in, they keep battling until the last minute, and I think that is very much shown in some of those games against London and against Carlow, when they did struggle at times, but they still managed to get over the line. And then if we speak about second place Antrim, so again, you know, Antrim very inconsistent at times this season, and probably were only really getting into their groove until the league was shut down. You know, as we said before, they beat Limerick in their final game of the league by 18 points, which is a massive victory when you really consider it. And when you actually look through some of their other results, they have been quite inconsistent. You know, they had a 1-point loss to Sligo, they only had a 4-point win over London, and again weren't particularly amazing in that game. They struggled when they played Carlow. They couldn't really get over the line in that game. But then on the other hand side of things, they had a great performance against Wexford. They beat them by 6 points. And then, as we were saying, that 18-point victory over Limerick, a very significant step in leading them towards promotion. Some players really to watch out for Antrim, of course. Oran Eastwood, very good young player, scored 2 goals and 3 points in that game versus Limerick. Patrick McBride as well has always been a very talented player, of course, for Antrim, and he scored 7 points in that game versus Limerick as well. So a lot of talented players in this Antrim side, and they were looking very good in second with 7 points and very well on course towards promotion. And then, of course, if we look through some of the other sides, we'll start with Wexford. They'd won 3 and lost 2, as we were saying, alongside the likes of Sligo and Wicklow. For Wexford, they lost to Antrim, as we were saying, by 6 points, and they also lost to Sligo by a point as well. They did, however, have wins over Carlow, Waterford and London, and it was actually a 3-game winning streak, which really helped Paul Galvin's men build a bit of momentum. And they did introduce some new young players into the side this year. Mark Rossiter, Owen Nolan in the side as well, and of course you have Ben Brosnan, very experienced Wexford player, who's been on the scene for a long time, and he's a very experienced player to have in this team. And, you know, again, of course, Paul Galvin's first year, still getting in the swing of things. Had some good results, as we were saying before, in those wins against the likes of Carlow and Waterford. But, of course, when they did come up against Antrim and Sligo, 2 of the stronger sides in the division, they did struggle. But, of course, going into those last 2 games, they certainly did have a great chance, and they were there or thereabouts. And then, of course, you had Sligo and Wicklow. Sligo, 3 wins, 2 losses, as we were saying. They actually won their first 2 against London and Antrim, but then lost to Wicklow by 5 points, and then following that actually lost at home to Waterford, which again, you know, very inconsistent. They're getting some good results against London and Antrim, but then losing to the likes of Wicklow and at home to Waterford, which is very disappointing. And they actually won away to Wexford. So Sligo, they've been very confusing this year. You know, they've won the games against the tougher opposition, but they've actually struggled against the less opposition in the likes of Wicklow and Waterford, and that's what has cost Sligo, has been that inconsistency. Patrick O'Connor has probably been their star player, 6 points against Antrim. Sean Carbine and Dara Cummins having a good season as well, but Sligo just very inconsistent at times in Division 4. And then you had Wicklow, who in many ways, just like Limerick, very much a surprise package and not really expected to potentially gain any promotion, but certainly have capitalised quite a lot on some of the mishaps from some of the stronger counties in this division. They started their campaign with a 2-point loss away to Carlow, but they then followed up with an 8-point win over Waterford and a 5-point win over Sligo. And of course they were beaten by Limerick away, as we were saying before. Limerick beat them by 8 points, and then they followed that up in their last game, a win away at London. So very much an important point to look at from Wicklow, from looking through their fixtures. Their home form has been critical. They won all their home games, but they lost all their away games, other than London, of course. And Shawnee Furlong, their star man this year, man of the match versus Sligo, scoring 1-3. Rory Finn and Geroyd Murphy have also had a wide impact in Wicklow's Division 4 campaign as well. So I guess the question would have been then, how would the season have ended? Well, of course, if we look at some of the fixtures on screen right now, on match day 6 we would have had Carlow versus Sligo, Limerick versus Wexford, Waterford, and Wicklow versus Antrim. So Carlow would have been at home to Sligo. As we said before, Carlow very inconsistent, Sligo the same in many ways, and you know, you can almost say that this would go either way, but I just think Sligo would bounce back and just have a bit of momentum going into this game and would probably edge out Carlow. Carlow haven't really been scoring in the division. It's been a big problem for them. If you look through some of their score lines, they haven't been able to really do much, so I would have went with Sligo. Limerick versus Wexford, I mean, as we said before, very hard one to call. To be honest, I probably would have went with a draw. Limerick very good at home, but you know, just coming off an 18-point loss to Antrim, how would they have responded to that? I would have said a draw. I really can't split them, to be perfectly honest. You would have then had Wicklow Antrim, and of course, as we just said, Antrim beating Limerick by 18 points. You know what? They've just literally turned the corner. They've gotten into their groove. Going away against Wicklow, which in fairness haven't been beaten at home, would be a tricky game. Certainly wouldn't be easy. And the way this division has gone at times, it wouldn't have surprised me if Wicklow got something from this game. But I would have gone with Antrim to get the victory here. And then if we moved on to the final day of the season, the big one in many ways, Sligo against Limerick. So Limerick would still be ahead of Sligo, based off if those points happened from match day 6. So if Sligo won and Limerick through, but Sligo at home to Limerick on the final day. And as I was saying before, Limerick have capitalised massively on beating some of the lesser sides in this division. But when they've played the more tougher sides, in my opinion, like Antrim, for example, they struggled. So how would they have done away against Sligo? You know, losing 18 points away against Antrim, I'm just not too sure they would have got anything from this game. And I think with what is on the line for Sligo, I reckon they would have beat Limerick and they would have got over the line. Now, obviously, as we were saying, Sligo lost at home to Waterford. So not exactly a given that Sligo wins this game. But if I'm going to make a prediction, I'll go with Sligo. You would have then had Wexford versus Wicklow. I mean, kind of irrelevant at this stage, but I would have went with Wexford. And Antrim versus Waterford. Antrim at home, certainly winning that. So that would have meant that Antrim would have finished on top and Sligo would have joined Antrim in the front two. And I think that's a fair assumption. You know, when you look at Sligo beat Antrim earlier in the year as well, and I just think Sligo have just been very inconsistent in the division. I do think they have shown that they are a very good side. They've just let their guard down in some matches against Wicklow and Waterford, and I think they would have got over the line in the end. I think what I would say is, regardless as to who joins Antrim in the top two, I still think Antrim win the Division 4 Championship. They win that game in Croke Park in the final, and they would have obviously gained promotion to Division 3. It's a hard one to call in many ways. I mean, maybe, you know, if Wexford beat Limerick and then beat Wicklow, you're looking at Wexford as the side who would have joined Antrim. So very, very tricky one in many ways to actually call. But I would have gone with Antrim and Sligo to gain promotion into Division 3. Alright, so then we look at Division 3. Now obviously there is relegation in this division, and a little bit more self-explanatory in many ways. Division 3, it's a little bit of an easier one to speak about. But if we look at the sides down at the bottom of the table very quickly, so we'll see Louth, Leitrim and Tipperary. So I think Louth were gone. I think their last two games were against Down and Cork. They wouldn't have got anything from those games. I mean, Down and Cork are in the top 2, top 3, so we'll be talking about them in a moment. So I don't think Louth would have got anything from those games, and even if they did, I still think they would have went down anyway. But then obviously you had Leitrim, who were down there, and again, you know, Leitrim in many ways have surprised some people. They've picked up a couple of wins, or they picked up a win, of course, and they also got a draw. So they drew away with Derry, and they lost to Cork, Longford and Offaly, but they did beat Louth by 8 points. So Leitrim have had some decent results. Ryan O'Rourke, one of their standout players, scoring 203 against Louth, and Keith Byrne has been impressive in many ways as well. We also had Tipperary down there as well. Tipperary very much been in free fall ever since they reached an All-Ireland semi-final back in 2016. Ever since then, it's been very much a struggle for Tipperary. And when you think about it, of course, you know, a lot of those players from that team, like Michael Quinlivan, for example, not in the panel anymore. So obviously Tipperary, in terms of their season and how they've got on, so they threw it down in the opening game, which, you know, not the worst result in the world, getting a draw against Down, one of the promotion candidates. They then beat Louth away by a point, but unfortunately then they had 3 straight losses. Derry, Cork and Longford very much in contention for potential promotion, especially Cork and Longford. Difficult fixtures for Tipperary, and unfortunately they just weren't able to get anything out of those games. They were impressive against Cork. I believe they only lost by a point in that game, kicked 21 points. So they do have some impressive talent in there. Conor Sweeney, of course, he was a player who was out and about, of course, back in 2016 in that All-Ireland semi-final. Jack Kennedy, Brian Fox, also providing the support to the attack as well, providing the likes of Conor Sweeney with those opportunities to kick the points and goals that they need in those decisive matches. So I suppose who would have been relegated then in an overall sense? Well, unfortunately, despite having always had a soft spot for Leitrim because of some family connections there, I just don't see how they would have overturned this and they would have survived, especially when you look at the fixtures, for example. I mean, first of all, Leitrim actually played Tipperary in a massive game, and it's a tough one to call because Leitrim would have been playing this at home, but I just think the fact that Tipperary came off such a very impressive performance in that game versus Cork, I think that would give them the momentum to get over the line. And I actually think even if Leitrim won this game, it still would have been a massive struggle, because you look at the last game of the season, Tipperary at home to Offaly and Down at home to Leitrim. Down very much in contention at the top of Division 3, and I think that would have been a very difficult game for Leitrim even if they had have got a result against Tipperary. So I'm going to go with Tipperary in the end to survive, to get what they need to get done in those last two games and survive. And unfortunately for Leitrim, it will be back down to Division 4. Alright, so then you had the promotion race. So you had Cork, Longford and Down. For me, all very much in contention. I mean, Cork, first of all, if we just say so, I think they're promoted already. They already have a 3-point gap over Longford. They're already on top, and they've won every game so far. They've won all 5 games. It's been very comfortable for Cork in many ways, and actually in their last 2 games they play Longford and Louth, of course, as we said before, down near the bottom, haven't won a game. So you would have had to fancy that Cork would have won or would have finished on top in Division 3. I actually think they would have won the Division 3 championship as well. If we look at some of their standout players, of course, Luke Connolly, always a player who's on the name of many Cork players, and Cathal O'Mahony's been very good as well. And of course they brought back in Kieran Sheehan, who played in the 2010 All-Ireland final versus Down, so they had a bit more experience in there this year as well to provide some of the younger players. And yeah, I mean, as we said before, Longford and Louth in their last 2 games. Cork, for me, finished top quite comfortably and head to that final in Croke Park for Division 3. And okay, then it would have led to both Longford and Down, and I guess this would have been the real deciding factor as to who would have gained promotion here between both Longford and Down. Now, Longford, of course, are the side very much who have the advantage. I mean, they're ahead of Down on scoring difference, and in fairness to Longford, I mean, we have to kind of look at them maybe in the same breath as to Limerick in Division 4, capitalised quite a lot on some of the inconsistency in the division, and beat a lot of the teams that they should be beating. So they beat Louth, they beat Leitrim, they beat Tipperary, they drew with Offaly, and then lost it Down, and they actually conceded a last minute goal in that game versus Down when it was very neck and neck, and it could have easily went another way. I think maybe that game was the deciding factor in who gets promoted between both Longford and Down. Had Longford have won that, they would have had I believe a 3-point gap over Down, or they would have had a 4-point gap in fact over Down, which at this stage would have seen them being promoted. So, and I think unfortunately for Longford, the tough thing for them is their last 2 games are away to Derry and home to Cork, whereas Down's matches are against Louth and Leitrim. So Longford are playing the sides, near the top of the division, and Down are playing the sides down near the bottom. So again, going to be very difficult for Longford to turn that one around and claim promotion, unfortunately. If we look at some of the players on either side, I suppose for Longford, Oran Kenny, very impressive, scored 1-3 against Tip. Darren Gallagher and Liam Connerton again have very much provided the likes of Oran Kenny with those opportunities as well, so they have been impressive in some of those winning games for Longford as well. Down, of course, I mean, Donald O'Hare, Liam Kerr, they have been the main players. So Donald O'Hare was very impressive, in fact, when they did beat Longford in that game by, I believe, 2 or 3 points. So it was a massive victory for Down. And I suppose all in all, I would go with Down to get promotion over Longford. Again, just those fixtures at the end I think make a massive difference, and I think the fact that Down beat Longford, of course, as well, I think is massive, and I think Down would have been the side to clinch promotion. But again, you know, massive credit to Longford. A lot of people had them down near the relegation battle at the start of the season. I certainly didn't have them in consideration for promotion, so they do deserve massive credit, and they certainly are a county that is on the rise in Gaelic football at the moment. We've seen that at club level, so massive credit to Longford for the season that they have had. And I suppose then when Cork and Down play each other in Croke Park, I would have gone with Cork, but I mean, who knows, in a one-off game anything could have really happened, and Down certainly do have a lot of talented players and could have provided a lot of problems to Cork. And who knows, anything really could have happened. But anyway, lads, that is going to be the end of the video. Of course, I will be dropping a part 2 to this where we look at Division 2 and Division 1. That will come out in a couple of days, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Anyway, lads, my name is Aaron. I will catch you all soon. Have a lovely week, and of course, do subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, lads, I will speak to you all soon. My name is Aaron, and I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.